Hello YouTube, my name is Paul, I hope you're all keeping well. I'm back today then with another collection video, and today is the turn of the SEGA Saturn, one of two 5th generation consoles I collect for. Yeah, back in the day I took the road most travelled and went for Sony's Wonder console as over SEGA Saturn. But I remember seeing the SEGA Saturn running a demo of Virtua Fighter in my local Virgin Megastore, which was in Croydon. I wasn't too impressed by it. The graphics didn't look particularly great and the polygons were pretty plain, which is the sort of thing I've been seeing for many years before on the Amiga. A good friend of mine had a PC, so I was starting to see some absolutely fantastic looking games on there. That's kind of what I wanted to replicate at home with the Saturn or the PlayStation. So that put me off straight away. Then a couple of weeks later I went back into the same store and the Saturn was running Daytona USA, which looked absolutely amazing. And that almost tempted me to buy a Saturn. Luckily for me, I reined in that impatience of mine, got home, had a good old dose of Sony Pro magazine, seeing games like Destruction Derby, Wipeout, Toshinden, Tekken and Ridge Racer, and I was back into Sony mode. So obviously the Saturn in the UK got released in July in 1995 and the PlayStation came out in September. So yeah, I had to wait another couple of months to get my polygon fix, unfortunately. So yeah, into the sort of collecting lot then, I picked up a Saturn for about 15 quid, about 1999, 2000. And I built up a little collection back then. And I sold it off in about 2004. But I started recollecting again in 2013. Didn't have any specific designs on my collection, I just wanted to get every rare game listed by Retro Collect and anything that was desirable. But as you do, you pick up other stuff along the way. So at the moment I've got about 160 games maybe on the Saturn. I've got no desire for a full set because a lot of the games that are remaining are games I just do not want in the collection. Lots and lots of baseball games I think, or American football titles I'm not really interested in whatsoever. So what I'll do is the usual, I'll go around the console, we'll have a quick whiz around that and have a chat about that, and then we'll move on to the games. See you in a bit. So yeah, my SEGA Saturn then is the Mark II, which is not the one I prefer, to be honest. I much prefer the original Mark I. I just prefer the original's panel at the front. Whereas this one's quite plain and boring, to be honest. So as you can see, you've got a power switch, a reset switch and open button for the top loader. The back of the console, you've got the power cable and RF cable. There's not really too much there, to be honest. There is a facility to have a SCART cable or a composite cable. Comes in its small box, whereas obviously the Mark I comes in quite a large box in comparison to the size of the console. Quite a few accessories were available for it. As you can see, there's quite a large arcade racing wheel, which is very big actually, bigger than I ever imagined it to be. 6-player adapter, video, CD card, Virtua stick, which is pretty cool. The Virtua gun, sorry, which comes with the Virtua Cop game. Surprisingly, you can also get that gun with, oh, what's it called? House of the Dead, which is quite an expensive box set. As you can see there, the 3D controller, which was another peripheral. This one came with Nights into Dreams. Never got the hang of that controller, to be honest. It's quite awkward. And then you've got a backup memory cartridge, which obviously goes into the cartridge port of the SEGA Saturn. There are other uses for it as well. The Actions 16 or Action something or another goes in the back of the card there, which enables you to play pirated CDs or import CDs. There's a famous Daytona USA and the controller. The controller is a little bit smaller than the Mark I model, but to be honest with you, I thought it was quite disappointing compared to the Sony PlayStation controller, which I thought was pretty revolutionary for its day. Let's just stick on a bit of Daytona. This is kind of what I saw when I went into Virgin Megastore in Croydon. Like I said, I was really tempted to buy this console, but luckily for me I didn't. There's quite a decent library of games on the system, about 269 I believe. There she is. And that looked pretty impressive. Let's check out some of these games.
Hey, that's Valkyrie. Does he design the games? No, he executes them.
Driver 41 ready to download.
Reality always hurts.
Welcome to the real world, SEGA Saturn.
Right then, let's crack on with some of those lovely jubbly games. Now, SEGA Saturn games generally, the PAL releases in the UK, aren't particularly difficult to get. Although there are some desirable titles there that do fetch a lot of money nowadays. But I never struggled to get probably 99% of what I got. One or two took a while to come up. And sometimes they can go for more than, well, sometimes if you wait long enough, you can probably get a decent bargain. I did get a couple of bargains on my Saturn though. So let's crack on and show you what I got anyway. So I haven't got a full set, I've got about 169 games. I have no desire to continue, to be honest. Maybe some Japanese titles in the future, but who knows. So the first game I've got is a sequel to Discworld, and that's Discworld 2. A desirable title, don't come up particularly often. Yes, comes up less frequently than its prequel. Next one, again, is quite a difficult game to get actually. That's Dragon Heart Fire and Steel. Lovely bit of artwork there. It's a shame really, it's almost like the last generation of consoles where the artwork weren't bad. Speaking of bad artwork, Sky Target. Another quite difficult one to pick up. Dragon Ball Z, which I'm pretty sure is a Portuguese exclusive. Again, quite lucky to pick a lot of these games up before the prices started to spike. Quite a few fighters amongst this first batch. The first up is Fighting Vipers, which got a sequel on the good old Dreamcast. Probably the weakest Sonic game, Sonic 3D. So Flicky's Island. Only ever really enjoyed the very first Sonic, to be completely honest. After that, I never bothered again. Now, this game I had on the PlayStation, or some variant of it anyway, and that's Ballerina Toshinden. A really good fighter. Wasn't as good as the likes of Tekken or Virtua Fighter 2, but it weren't bad at all. You've seen the original Daytona. This is Daytona USA Championship Circuit Edition. Even better graphics on this one. Now, game again I bought on the PlayStation. Wasn't particularly great. I remember having a really good introduction sequence and a really good atmosphere, but the gameplay itself was found wanting, and that's DEFCON 5. Again, not much on the back there. Sega Saturn exclusive, Athlete Kings. Never really played it, but I really enjoyed playing Track and Field back on the PlayStation. What a fantastic game that was. This is Bug, or Bug 2 I should say. A sequel to Bug. One of those 3D platformers. I remember playing 3D platformers for the first time. It was really difficult to sort of get your bearings. I found them quite tricky. This is probably the hardest to get pinball game on the Saturn, and that's Pinball Graffiti. Again, probably one of the later games I got for the collection. Going from a difficult game to a relatively easy one. Well, it definitely is an easy one. It's Area 51. Very good on rail shooter. I played this, I don't know, about nearly 20 years ago for the first time. I started collecting for the Saturn originally. A lot of these games are the original sort of released cardboard sleeved things, which usually come apart really easily. Which are a pain in the bum. But there are some variants where you've got the cardboard sleeves or you've got the plastic sleeves, you put the insert in. But finding them in great conditions really hard. Next up is Dark Saviour. Quite a desirable title. I think I picked that up from a local shop. Next one is probably the original what are they called? I forgot what they're bloody called now. Alone in the Dark, Jack is Back. Survival horror, that's what I was trying to flip and get out my mouth there. The original survival horror game. Doesn't look very good, actually looks very dated now. Next up is Gex. Cool Crocodile. Never played it. Again, I'm pretty sure this came out on the PlayStation as well. Now this game took me ages to get hold of. Every time I got a copy of it, it never loaded, so I was pretty unlucky with it. But I finally got hold of one, and that's Batman Forever, the arcade game. Again, quite a desirable title. Next up is a really common game, and that's Tomb Raider. That was a flipping fantastic game for its day. Incredible graphics, incredible atmosphere. Next up is Darius 2. Obviously part of the famous Darius franchise. Did a spotlight video quite recently for it on the Atari ST. Not particularly good game either. Command & Conquer. Unfortunately, a lot of these original PC games I didn't get the opportunity to play until I bought a PlayStation, and that I played for hours. What a fantastic game that is. From a fantastic game to a very bland game, and that's Scorcher. Again, quite common. Nothing to write home about. Next up is Tempest 2000. I think it's the only variant of Tempest I've got in my entire collection. It's a very good game. Jewels of the Oracle, another quite desirable title. Quite a difficult one to get, doesn't come up particularly often. A couple of trilogies that I remember having on the PlayStation. This one is Alien Trilogy, which was a fantastic game. Had amazing graphics, amazing atmosphere, but it was also amazingly difficult. Now this game is to peruse over in Sony Pro. I couldn't wait for my PlayStation to come out. And they got a Saturn release some months later on, and that's Destruction Derby. It's not as good as the PlayStation version. Next up is Mortal Kombat Trilogy, a franchise that I'm not really that familiar with. I've obviously heard of the games, but I've never really played them. Not really into my 1v1 fighters, I much prefer the Street Brawlers. But that one did set me back a lot, quite a lot of money. That was about 4 years ago, but I think it was about 90 quid for that. This is Darius Gaiden, one of those desirable Darius games. Great shooter. Next up is True Pinball. For those who actually got it here. True Pinball for the Saturn is pretty much the same as Pinball Illusions on the Amiga. Unfortunately, the Amiga version has got one less table. Yeah, it looks great. Next up is Marvel Superheroes. Got no idea what this is about. Guess it's just a one-on-one beat 'em up with superheroes in it. This is a cracking series of games. Virtua Cop 2. That and Time Crisis I used to absolutely love. You can also get this as part of a box set including the Virtua Gun. Now I remember playing this one years ago when I had my Saturn, sort of around 1999, and that's Duke Nukem 3D. Another one of those fantastic PC games I didn't get to play for some years. Cracking game though. Right, Buster Move 3, I'm sure there's a Buster Move 2 on a Saturn. I'm pretty sure there's a Buster Move 4 on a Dreamcast. Never really played it, to be honest. Another legendary game on a Saturn, that's Saturn Bomberman. Very desirable. One of those games that's value just keeps going up and up and up. Right, what else we got? One thing about these Saturn games as well, they're quite weighty. Got a lot of weight to them. Clockwork Knight 2. Very good platformer, again an exclusive for the Sega Saturn. Showing you in the wrong order, but it's Clockwork Knight. Never played the next one, and that's D. Not quite sure what it even is, to be honest. Again, it took me until I got my PlayStation before I actually got to play this particular game for any length of time. That's Doom. Saturn version is slower. Does suffer with a bit of slowdown with the old frame rate. It's not as good as the PlayStation version. I think it's got less lighting effects, if I remember rightly. This one's quite an obscure title. That's The Crow, City of Angels. Again, like I said, trying to find these in nice condition is flipping hard. Never played this one. That's Trash It. Next up is a game I think was developed by the same guys who brought us Virtua Fighter, and that's Fighters Mega Mix. Next game was the last game I picked up for the Saturn. It took me absolutely ages to source this game for a decent price. There's plenty of buy it nows, but as you know, all asking for ridiculous money. That's All Star Hockey 98, which is quite a difficult game to get hold of. This one set me back about 15 quid, so it wasn't too bad really, because some people were asking about 60-70 quid for it at the time. Right, another game I had on the Amiga, and that's Theme Park. And I much preferred these on a computer as opposed to a console. Next up is Mysteria, The Realms of Lore. Never played it. Now this one I remember playing on the PlayStation. It was a fantastic game, and that's Loaded. I'm still after it now actually for the PlayStation. It's a cracking game with some cracking lighting effects. Next up is another 1v1 fighter, and a Street Fighter Alpha 2. There is a Street Fighter Alpha on a Saturn, which I don't have. And this game I got as part of a bundle of games for about 60 quid. There was this, there was Dragon Force, and Shining Force 3, and that's Shining Wisdom. I think I picked up the whole bundle for about 60 quid. There was about 12 games in it, including those other two. Bargain or what? Another PC classic, and that's Exhumed. Played this one for a bit, didn't really find it great fun to be honest. Next up is Croc, Legend of Gobos. Gobos, whatever it is. Again, not really my cup of tea. Now a fantastic platformer that I played on the Sega Mega Drive, and that's Earthworm Jim 2. The prequel came out on the Mega CD, and obviously the Mega Drive, but didn't come out on the Saturn. I think I've already shown you the sequel to this game, and that's Bug. Let's get the final few games a minute before I can no longer reach them. The first one I've actually got a duplicate of this, and that's Firestorm or Thunderhawk 2. The original game came out on the Mega CD. I really enjoyed this on the PlayStation as well. Another really good game. Skeleton Warriors is quite an obscure title. Again, quite desirable. And really looks like great fun. F1 Challenge. Another Saturn exclusive. And last but not least is Mortal Kombat 2. Again, like I said earlier, a franchise I've never really spent a lot of time playing. That's it for this first part of the video. So yeah, I reckon I've got another 2 more parts to show you. So I'll see you again in the next video. Take care and bye for now.